Alright people, Max Allen here again. Welcome back to another Cyberpunk 2077 video. Today I just want to talk a little bit about this Cyberpunk versus Starfield debate that's been going on for a little while now. It's been pretty interesting to see people come around to really loving or not really loving Starfield, it's actually the opposite. I meant to say coming around to love Cyberpunk, while slowly coming to dislike Starfield, it seems. People who were really hot on it in the beginning have kind of slowly changed their mind. They've got in maybe 30, 40 hours and come away from the game and tried some other games like Cyberpunk and Phantom Liberty. Really got into that expansion. And then they've been going back and trying to get into Starfield again, and they just can't do it after playing Cyberpunk. Now I haven't tried to go back to Starfield yet, so I'm not sure how it's gonna be when I do attempt that. But I'm also not sure I actually do want to attempt it, because I just am enjoying Cyberpunk so much, and I've sort of gone back here and started a new character, and started the game over again from the beginning, when initially I just wanted to play Phantom Liberty and leave it at that, and then go back to Starfield. I sort of had such a good time with the Phantom Liberty DLC and the expansion, and got so much more into the game than before, that I just don't think I have time to go back to Starfield now. And I wasn't like completely blown away by Starfield, so it's been pretty easy actually for Cyberpunk to steal me away from Starfield. And I can kind of see why other people might have had that happen to them as well. And I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what might have happened, that the Bethesda formula doesn't have the same attraction to me and maybe some other people as it once did. And I think what I'm starting to see is that maybe it's something to do not with how old the engines are, because Red Engine that Cyberpunk's built in is pretty damn old. Maybe not as old as the Creation Engine, but it goes back to the mid 2000s when CD Projekt were making The Witcher 2, I believe. So it is pretty old, so I don't think an old engine is really holding them back. I know Cyberpunk launched in such a terrible way, but that really wasn't anything to do with the engine. It was just they didn't have enough time to actually make the game they were trying to make. I mean, this is an entire 3 years later that we finally got the finished game. And they still are using Red Engine, and in the end they did prove that the Red Engine is capable of actual quality when the developers have enough time to actually do what they're trying to do, and they're not being forced to rush out a game to please shareholders who are saying it's taken too long. We need our money back on our investment, so hurry up and just put the game out. But getting off on a bit of a tangent there, so I'll say I don't think the Creation Engine is to blame for Bethesda's problems either. I think it's more their design philosophy and their commitment to this presentation style they've had, with how NPCs interact and talk to the player, and how their quests are laid out. They haven't really evolved them since sort of the Oblivion Morrowind days. When you speak to a character in Starfield, you still just walk up to them, the camera zooms right into their face, and they just stand there stock still, sort of staring directly into your soul, with a not that great facial animation playing out, and the rest of their bodies just like completely still. And then they read out some exposition of a quite uninteresting quest where you're probably going to fetch some item and bring it back to them quite often. At least that's what the main story felt like in Starfield. I kept being sent off to a cave or different caves on various planets to just pick up a bit of space rock and bring it back to someone. And when you compare that kind of quest design to what you're doing in Cyberpunk, where you'll be like asked to infiltrate a hotel, and you'll be able to go into this hotel from like three or four different entry routes. Maybe you climb up to the building across the street, jump across to a balcony, go in through the window. Maybe you come down from a fire escape onto the roof, and there's a door in the roof that you can hack and unlock and get in that way. Or you might just go straight in the front door, uh, talk your way past the guy at the desk, pretend you're supposed to be at that hotel. Or maybe you don't even talk to the guy at the desk. You see he has a key card on his desk that'll open an elevator, and you can climb in that way. And you'll go in there, and maybe you have to steal something, or you'll have to take out an enemy, or something like that. And it just feels a lot more immersive the way the quests in Cyberpunk are designed, and the NPCs that you're talking to, like Judy or Panam, or any of these really memorable characters, even Johnny Silverhand, the main sort of NPC in the game, who's like your constant companion. The way he talks to you and is animated and is presented, it's just like complete night and day between this and Starfield. Johnny will appear maybe sitting in a chair or just lounging around on the bonnet of a vehicle. He'll be smoking a cigarette, or he'll be messed around with his aviator sunglasses. He'll be really animated, doing things with his hands, just walking around with his arms folded, looking moody. His facial animation, it's really great. You can tell they worked really hard to capture Keanu. If they've done any mocap stuff, it really paid off. And it just feels completely immersive when you're talking to an NPC in Cyberpunk compared to Starfield. And I think that is the core of the problem with Starfield, because it's not the combat or anything. I think people find the combat quite serviceable. It's not as good as the shooting in Cyberpunk either. You don't have like all these different abilities, like the quick hack abilities, all that stuff that really makes the combat really dynamic, or all the cyberware where you can jump really high into the air, come up behind people, use your mantis arms or your gorilla arms to beat people, whip out a katana, slide around really fast pace, all that really great stuff. The combat isn't as fluid as that in Starfield, but I don't think that's the problem, because most people seem to quite like they find the Starfield combat serviceable. It's good enough for what they're trying to do, but I think the main problem is this presentation issue, and it's how their NPCs are presented, how the dialogue is written, and how the quests are designed that's really put people off from going back to Starfield after they've experienced Cyberpunk. And I think that is an issue that Bethesda really need to work on. I think they could possibly still do it in the creation engine if they maybe spent less time worrying about the size of their world. Like putting 1,000 planets in Starfield, was that really necessary? Could you have done 500 planets maybe? And maybe put a bit more resources into animating your characters and your writing and quest design. I think that is the real issue of why people are so down on Bethesda games these days. It wasn't great in the past either, but the exploration in previous Bethesda games was so good and not as segmented as it is in Starfield that it papered over a lot of cracks with Bethesda's presentation. But Cyberpunk Night City is the most impressive part of the game. Like, it's completely open. You can run or drive from one end of it to the other, never encounter a loading screen. You can take on, like, I don't know, 5-10 different quests in one session and never encounter a loading screen, as long as you don't die and have to reload or whatever. And just that level of presentation and fluidity, how everything like just flows together and is seamless, or at least they disguise it to be seamless, like when you're going into an elevator or something, one of the big mega buildings, You're still in control of V. You can still walk around and still be talking to Johnny Silverhand on the elevators and stuff. And they just have a better way of tricking people into being immersed. That I think Bethesda really need to look into that, and that their presentation is the core issue of why people are struggling to go back to Starfield, and why I'm not actually sure if I will go back to Starfield. I wasn't that compelled by the main story. I'd done the Crimson Fleet quest line, which, to be fair, that was quite well written, quite entertaining, but I just don't know if the rest of the game is really that interesting to me, and if I can honestly go back to it. So let me know your thoughts below. Do you think the problem with Starfield is simply the presentation, or do Bethesda actually need to upgrade from the creation engine? So alright people, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time with another Cyberpunk video.